You're listening to the Quint's podcast.
June 15, 2020 will go down in history as the day when 20 Indian troops, including their commanding officer, died in clashes with PLA soldiers at Galwan Valley. Although both countries have had several standoffs over the year, these were the first casualties at the LAC since 1975. 1 year since these fatal cases, there have been economic sanctions on Chinese companies in India and FDI from China. Bans have been imposed on 59 Chinese-made apps in India, some of them being really popular apps like Tik Tok and PUBG. There have also been 11 rounds of talks between the two sides, which have been unsuccessful to bring about complete disengagement. There has been some amount of disengagement at the Galwan side and some in the Pangong Tso lake area as well. But one thing became clear. The old neighbours consider the boundary question in fundamentally different ways. Even External Affairs Minister S. Shankar stated earlier this month that relations with China is at a crossroads. So, where does the India-China relationship stand a year after the Galwan Valley clashes? Is it time for India to go back to the drawing board to rethink its policy on China? For this episode, we spoke with Vishnu Prakash, who is the former High Commissioner to Canada, Ambassador to South Korea, and official spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs, and Manoj Joshi, a distinguished fellow at the Observer Research Foundation. You will also hear from Namrata Kumari, the wife of the martyr Kundan Oja. You're tuned in to The Big Story, the podcast where we dissect the headline making news for you, and I'm your host, Himmat. On the first anniversary of the Galwan clashes, the Indian Army paid tribute to the 20 soldiers who lost their lives. Leading the homage to the soldiers, Army Chief General M.M. Naravane stated that their valor will be eternally etched in the memory of the nation. A statue of Colonel Santosh Babu, the commanding officer of the 16th Bihar Regiment, was also unveiled at his native place in Suryapat in Telangana by Minister K.T. Ramarao. Havildar K. Palani, Naib Subedar Nuduram Soren, Naik Deepak Singh, and Sipahi Gurtej Singh were awarded the Veer Chakra medal posthumously. Apart from the army, leaders from across the political spectrum also paid their tributes to the martyrs. Congress Chief Sonia Gandhi said that her party is patiently waiting for the centre to come clean and inform the nation on the circumstances which led to the conflict. Delhi Chief Minister and AAP Supremo Arvind Kejriwal said on Twitter that the country will remain indebted to the immortal sacrifice of the soldiers. But even so, the unfortunate reality is that the next of kin of some martyrs have not received the compensation that they deserve. Sipahi Kundan Oja from Jharkhand was among the 20 soldiers who were martyred and is survived by his wife Namrata and daughter Diksha. Kundan last spoke to his wife when his daughter was born, just 17 days before the clash. Soon after the incident, the Jharkhand state government promised Namrata a number of things, including a free plot of land and even a petrol pump. However, according to Namrata, only the rupees 10 lakh ex gratia compensation has been provided to her so far. Speaking to the Quint, she said that she needs a job to independently raise their daughter, adding that rupees 10 lakh won't last all her life.
हमारे पति देश के लिए शहीद हुए हैं। लड़ते लड़ते जंग में वो अपनी जान की आहुति दे चुके, लेकिन सरकार अभी तक शहीद की पत्नी के लिए कुछ भी नहीं कर पाए। वो हम लोगों ने कितने सपने सजाए थे अपनी बच्ची के लिए। उन्होंने अपनी बच्ची का ना चेहरा देख पाए, ना अपने गोद में खिला पाए, ना कुछ पाए, कुछ कर पाए। साल लगने को है, अभी तक हमारी नौकरी नहीं मिली। हमें नौकरी मिलनी ही चाहिए, इसलिए क्योंकि हम अपनी बच्ची का एक अच्छी से अच्छी परवरिश कर सके और खुद भी अच्छा परवरिश अपनी फैमिली का कर सके।
But have India and China's ties gone back to business as usual? Well, far from it. While neither country has divulged the full details of the event, they also disagree on each other's version of the events. The centre and Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself have denied any intrusion had taken place, but Indian forces had in fact repelled an attempted intrusion. But in China's version of the story, Indian troops attacked Chinese officers and soldiers and demolished infrastructure along the LAC, triggering the conflict. The circumstances of the clash are still up in the air, but since then, a pullback of forces on both sides from the site of the Galwan clash was conducted in July 2020, and in February, disengagement was conducted in the Pangong Tso Lake area. However, China is continuing to push back on the other disputed territories, like the Depsang Place, Kugrang River Valley, and the Chandring Nala. This has also prevented Indian troops to patrol these large chunks of territory which they were able to earlier. Vishnu Prakash, who served as an ambassador in India's embassy in Shanghai and is the official spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs, is of the opinion that we are back to base with China, that there is a complete lack of trust, and that business can't be back to usual.
Well, we are in a rather difficult phase of the relationship, likes of which have not been seen earlier except in 1962. Clearly, the edifice of cooperation, the understanding, the CBMs, etc., have all been thrown out of the window. We are back to base, if I were to put it that way. And from here, we have to take it forward. Now, what direction it goes, how it goes, when it goes, what shape does it take is anybody's guess. But in long and short of it is that there is complete lack of trust. At least we cannot trust the Chinese. We are also clear that it cannot be business as usual. I, for one, am very clear that having served in China and following China for more than 2 decades, that China will, if it can, will try to stymie the rise of India, and does not see India as a competitor now, but sees the prospect of India emerging as a major power, and it will try its best to keep us boxed in the South Asian framework.
Now, India in the past has been able to detach the border dispute to foster its relationship with China, and it did so exactly in 1993 when it signed the Border Peace and Tranquility Arrangement, which clearly came crashing down in 2020. Even though the Indian-China relationship has undergone a massive shift, especially from the arrangements between the two neighbours on bringing large armed forces to the border, there is no clarity on where the relationship currently stands and the way ahead. Since the clash, India has imposed several economic restrictions on Chinese companies in India and FDI from there as well. It also banned 59 Chinese-made apps, which, according to the Ministry of IT, threatened the sovereignty and integrity of India. So, should India take Galwan as a peg and get back to the drawing board and rethink its policy on China? Mr. Prakash opines that China has not followed any commitment that they have made to its neighbours and to the West. He believes that China has only complicated the boundary issue and that for now, treading carefully is the only way forward.
Well, let us look at from where is China coming from. They believe that they have the mandate from heaven. Actually, whether the top leadership believes it or not, but that is the line that is given. And now with the mandate of heaven, the earthly things are a mere convenience. They don't think that they are bound by anything that has been committed to, agreed to, international rules, norms, rule of law, because they believe that they have to correct a wrong that has been inflicted on them. And President Xi Jinping himself speaks of the great Juvination of the Chinese nation, not realizing that practically every developing country has gone through a difficult period of colonization. So if this is the yardstick we have to follow, everybody should take to the gun. But China is unique, and in that they are becoming, their belligerence is rising in direct proportion to their economic might and the military muscle. And perhaps it's the only country in the world which has got territorial or other disputes with 18 countries, mostly the neighbors. And it is very clear when I say that they have not honored any commitment. I mean, look at what they've done in South China Sea. Even President Xi Jinping and Premier Le Keqiang had said that they are not militarizing South China Sea. And lo and behold, one day, because everybody knew what was happening. And then they say that whatever has happened there is for to help in navigation and freedom of navigation. International Arbitration Court gives an award in favor of Philippines, ignored. Treaties with India, ignored. So they use it so long as it is convenient and then develop an amnesia. So that is the problem with China, because no rules of the game apply to them. In 1988, when Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi went to China, and we restored normalcy in the relationship, what we agreed was that there was a massive boundary issue, but we should not allow the boundary issue to come in the way of normalization and building of relationship. So, in other words, it was not that first solve the boundary issue, but the premise was, understanding was that let us at the same time work to resolving the boundary issue, so that essentially things should not go parallel, but we don't let that come in the way. What they have done since 1988 is to complicate the boundary issue, no forward movement. In fact, they have been laying claims to areas which were not claimed earlier. And now they want to change the status quo ante by force. So, instead of resolving the issue, they are wanting to use violence and force to stake their claim on territory. They are two very, very different things. So it is something like terrorism and talks cannot go together. Similarly, you cannot keep nibbling away at our territory or attempt to nibble away, use force, and then expect us to say business as usual. So no, it is not business as usual. No, there is no change in India's position. And I think the stance that has been taken is a correct stance.
Despite these developments in Ladakh and the COVID-19 pandemic, the Indian-China trading relationship continued to thrive. In fact, China continued to be India's largest exporter in 2020, and in the first 5 months of 2021, trade soared by 70.1%. In dollar figures, that's a whopping 48.16 billion US dollars. However, there is a growing desire by the center to reduce economic dependence on China, especially in critical sectors like 5G technology, where the Department of Technology has excluded companies like Huawei and ZTE from participating in trials and even banned state-run telco BSNL from using Chinese equipment to upgrade their network bands. Manoj Joshi, a distinguished fellow at the Observer Research Foundation, states that India can't unilaterally detach itself economically with China, but needs to reduce its critical dependencies with it.
See, you can't turn the clock back. You can't pretend that what happened last year didn't happen. And the fact that the what happened last year was a breakdown of the confidence building measures, which is the 1993 agreement, 96 agreement, 2005, 2012 border defense cooperation agreement. So all these things kind of were violated, and so we need we if getting back. I don't think you can get back anywhere. You got to move forward and shape new CBMs. Okay, start out afresh and say, okay, under the present circumstances, what do we do? Maybe we can create more border zones, in the sense where there's no patrolling, neither side patrols, and there are some means of surveilling that area so that the clash will not occur. You see, so we may have to have new ideas here. So as I said, there's no going back. You have to move forward. And looking forward again, what we have seen in the last 2 years is that there has been no decline in trade. That means that India is still uh, needs China as a trading partner. Now, of course, there is this question, but at the same time, we need to ensure that we reduce critical dependencies. So if it's a matter of importing a sofa set or something, then it's okay, you know. But if there is of active pharmaceutical ingredients that you need for critical drugs, etc., which you should ensure then that those APIs are manufactured in India itself. So like this, you can take a more coherent and sharp approach towards your trading relation with China. But I don't think you can simply say that no, we're not going to trade anymore. That's simply not doable.
Against the backdrop of China's intrusion in the South China Sea and the pandemic, China also became the focus of this year's G7 meeting. Though the comments from any countries did not directly confront China, the G7 did state that it strongly opposes any unilateral attempts to change the status quo and increase tensions. China was clearly the target in sight for many countries, especially on the economic front, where the G7 declared that it will adopt collective approaches to take on China's non-market policies, and practices which undermine the fair and transparent operation of the global economy. Experts have noted that China's intrusion in Ladakh could be a result of India's growing relationship with the US and was clearly a show of dominance in the state. Given the pledges made in the summit, should there have been a more hardline focus by the G7 countries on confronting China on its intrusion? Mr. Prakash weighs in.
Well, I have been a diplomat. I am a firm believer in speaking softly but carrying a big stick if possible. And you wave the stick, you do not wield the stick. But the words should always be soft because soft words shows your strength. Strong words show your weakness, and words do not scare anybody. It's very easy to use strong words. I have a different point to make. I don't think that the Western world is still clear in its mind as to who is the bigger challenge and adversary, whether Russia or China. And I think that they are uh, trying to project the Russian bogey very starkly, very strongly, and somehow hoping that the Chinese dragon will go away because even Biden, President Biden's administration has not described China as an adversary. They call it the biggest competitor or the strongest competitor. And President Biden has been on record to say that wherever there is a national interest, we will engage with China. I mean, you engage with another, it's saying the obvious, right? You engage with another country in national interest. No country wants to, including European countries and America, wants to choose between China and another country. Everybody is continuing with these economic linkages. So I think it is the countries concerned have to make up their mind. Smell the coffee. Words are not going to scare China. It's only if there is a meaningful collaboration, and that you don't have to try and prove it. It will speak for itself. People, the powers will discern whether you mean business. And at the moment, I don't get the sense that the requisite will is there. It is more words. But yes, final point, the very fact that you have started talking about China being a challenge openly, starting to refer to China by name, I think that's an improvement, but we have a long way to go.
Even after a year, we are yet to gain clarity on what exactly transpired on that day which led to the conflict. What can be ascertained, however, is that the decades-long and carefully constructed relations between the two countries have been completely uprooted, and business is not going back to usual anytime soon. If you liked listening to this episode, please subscribe to The Big Story for episodic updates. We're available on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, JioSaavn, and most of the other popular podcast streaming platforms. For other podcasts, please log on to the Quint website, and for any feedback, please shoot an email to podcast@thequint.com.
Thanks for listening. Log on to the Quint's website and check out our other podcasts.